Okay, so here we are doing the HR podcast, and it is a topic that a lot of people have asked us to talk about, which is firing without fear, how Secure HR helps you avoid wrongful termination lawsuits. I'm your host, Sean Holyfield, and I have with me here Tara, CEO Business Leader,
Hey.
Lindsay, an HR leader and compliance expert, and Alex, the strategic, thoughtful people first leader. So welcome back to the show. Today we're talking about something that every leader eventually faces and almost nobody feels fully confident doing, which is termination, letting people go, firing them. Specifically, how to avoid wrongful termination lawsuits, because here's the truth. Firing someone isn't just emotional, it's legal. And if you get it wrong, it's very, very expensive.
And Sean, let's be clear, this is not just about protecting the company. It's about doing right by people. And most wrongful termination claims don't start because someone was evil. They start because something wasn't documented, wasn't consistent, or just wasn't compliant.
Exactly. And as the CEO, I'll just say it, termination is one of the most stressful things I've ever done. Not because the decision was wrong, but because I wasn't sure if I had crossed every legal T.
Right. And that's exactly where SecuraHR comes in. Because most lawsuits don't happen due to one big dramatic mistake. They happen because of small compliance gaps that compound.
Yeah. Let's actually jump into our first segment or our first piece here, which is like, what is a wrongful termination claim? Lindsay, let's level set. What actually qualifies as wrongful termination?
Legally, wrongful termination happens when an employee claims they were fired for an illegal reason. That can include discrimination, retaliation, whistleblowing, protected leave issues, wage disputes, even just inconsistent policy enforcement. Even in at-will states, you cannot terminate someone for illegal reasons.
And I mean, Lindsay, sometimes the employer just doesn't even realize that they created risk. Maybe they accidentally skipped a required accommodation conversation. Maybe they didn't follow their own handbook. Maybe they treated two similar situations differently.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, that's what scared me. It wasn't whether I had a reason, it was whether I had a defensible process. Because I feel justified is not a legal strategy.
Yeah, exactly. Tara, you couldn't be more right. Lawsuits aren't about feelings. They're about documentation, consistency, and whether you followed the law in the locations where your business operates. That's absolutely right. So let's move on to our second piece here, which is where companies get into trouble. And this is really important, right? Let's talk about the common traps. Lindsay?
Absolutely. Here are the big ones. So no documented performance history. Has the employee been talked to about this issue previously? No progressive discipline process. Can you show a history of warning, performance improvement plan implementation? Inconsistent enforcement of policies. Somebody else also took food that wasn't theirs from the break room, but they didn't get fired. So why is Tony getting fired for the same behavior? Outdated or non-compliant handbooks. This one is an employment lawyer's gold mine. We know this. Failure to follow final pay rules. Does your state require you to deliver all earned wages at the time of termination within 3 days? Have you checked this? And terminating someone shortly after protected activity like maternity or military leave.
And I'm going to jump in on this one because retaliation claims are huge. Someone complains about harassment, requests leave, or raises a wage concern, and then they're fired within weeks. And even if the firing was legitimate, the timing creates risk.
And most leaders aren't tracking that. They just think this person isn't performing.
Right. But law looks at context. Were they recently on family medical leave, FMLA? Did they file a workers' comp claim? Did they request an accommodation? Did you follow your own written policy? If you didn't, that's where lawyers start building leverage.
Yeah, absolutely. You couldn't be more right, Lindsay. It really is documentation. So much of this is documentation, having all the right things in the right place. And if these things are in place, it's a lot easier to protect your company. When they're not, that's exactly when the lawyers start circling, and it's what courts really focus on. So let's talk a little bit about how then SecuraHR would reduce wrongful termination risk. Like, how does SecuraHR as a platform really reduce that risk, if that makes sense? So here, let's get practical. What is it that the software does to actually help prevent these issues before they turn into lawsuits, Lindsay?
Well, there are three main ways. Number one, legally compliant policies. This one's huge. Secure HR provides jurisdiction-specific policies that are updated with federal, state, and local law changes. If your handbook is outdated, you're already exposed. Number 2, structured documentation tools. Secure HR guides employers through progressive discipline templates, performance improvement plans, like we mentioned earlier, termination checklists, how simple is that, and state-specific final pay rules. They vary greatly. You're not guessing what to include when you're going through termination. Number 3, compliance visibility. The system helps ensure required trainings are completed, required notices are posted, and leave laws are followed correctly. Wrongful termination cases often hinge on whether required training or policies existed. Secure HR documents the time and the date that those employees go through those trainings.
Love it. And for me as a business owner, the biggest shift was moving from I think we're covered to I know we're covered. Before Secure HR, everything lived in different folders, emails, or that one person's memory who was definitely on vacation.
Yeah, and that siloing, separation, fragmentation, all of that just creates vulnerability and risk. And when a claim comes in, you need clean documentation, not panic and run around trying to find it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the difference between reacting and operating from like a compliance foundation, right? That's the difference between knowing versus being concerned that you may or may not have what you need to protect yourself. So it sounds like employee compliance files solve that because you've got everything you need to prove compliance kind of down to the employee in one location.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so let's let's shift a bit and let's actually focus on something that also gets asked about quite a bit. Like, what's the financial situation here? You know, what's the financial reality? Let's talk money, because lawsuits just aren't stressful; they're also really, really expensive.
You've got it. Yep. Even when you win, defense costs alone can exceed 6 figures.
Wow.
Many businesses settle simply just to avoid the time and the reputational damage that they can take.
Yeah. The hidden cost is the distraction. Scrambling to pull documentation, forwarding panicked emails to lawyers, wondering why your blood pressure is suddenly a personality trait. It ties up leadership time, hurts morale, and absolutely wrecks culture because everyone can feel when leadership is stressed.
Yeah. And that, unfortunately, is that message that these things send internally. I mean, when terminations aren't handled consistently, excuse me, employees, they start to question the fairness of the culture, and compliance really actually strengthens that trust.
Yeah. Yeah. All of these things really kind of point to the fact that secure HR isn't really just about making firing easier. It's about making decisions defensible, consistent, and lawful. And with the click of a button, I think you, Lindsay, are an expert at this stuff. You can share employee compliance reports with everything you need to prove HR compliance and reduce that risk for these types of lawsuits. Is that right?
Absolutely. And it's loved all around. It not only does it make my life easier, but the people that need those documents, when I can just respond to the email the same day that I got it, requesting them with everything they need, simple for everybody.
Yeah. Okay. So occasionally, I'm smiling as I'm saying this because it happens more often than we'd like. We might talk with a company and their first response to secure HR or somebody that calls or talks with them is, oh, we're fine. We already have a lawyer. Tara?
That was me. I used to think, to the T, I used to think, we have an employment attorney. We're fine. Which honestly is kind of like saying, I have car insurance. I don't need brakes.
Exactly. Lawyers defend lawsuits. Secure HR helps prevent them. Your attorney doesn't update your handbook every time a law changes, and they change a lot. They don't run your progressive discipline process. That's on you. And they don't handle terminations or final payments. You have to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Prevention is operational. Defense is reactive. It is always better to be proactive when you're talking about lawsuit risk.
Yeah. So when you combine proactive compliance then with good legal counsel, you're operating from a position of strength, not fear. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So let's wrap this up. Let's just kind of wrap this up with the topic of our last segment here, which is how to fire without fear. In other words, how to let someone go without the fear of, or concern or worry, am I going to be sued or is something bad going to happen? And here's the reality. You will eventually need to terminate someone. It's not something we enjoy doing as leaders, but it will happen within your business. And the question isn't whether it'll actually happen or whether you'll do it. The question is whether you'll do it compliantly.
Yeah. And when policies are current, documentation is clean, and processes are consistent, you protect both your company and your people.
Yes. SecuraHR gave me, as a business owner, the confidence that I can fire someone without worrying I'll get sued for a stupid compliance mistake. And because I'm fine being the bad guy, but I don't want to be the legally negligent bad guy.
Yes, wrongful termination lawsuits thrive in gray areas. SecuraHR reduces gray.
So just to kind of sum up, right? If you want to lead without legal guesswork, right? If you want your company to be legally compliant, if you want termination decisions to be defensible, not stressful, or not full of fear, that's why SecuraHR exists. So thanks for listening. And remember, HR compliance isn't about fear. It's about leadership and making sure that you're setting your organization up to protect your people and to protect your organization as well. Thank you.